Today we're in Selinunte, absolutely beautiful place, the archaeological park here, and I'm going to show you around and hopefully give you some historical context for why this place is here and why it's so fascinating. I am so excited to show you one of my favorite places in Sicily. It's the Selinunte Archaeological Park. Now, why is this place special? Because we have the remnants of the ancient Greeks here. How did people get here? How did the Greeks get here? Here's how. So, about 728 BC, the people from Megara in Greece decided they were going to have a settlement in Sicily. Now, a few other groups had gotten here before them and settled along the eastern coast of Sicily. We're talking about like Naxos and Leontonoi. But the Megarans, they got here and didn't really get along with the other groups of Greeks that were here. Their dialect was slightly different and it just couldn't seem to get along with other people. So the king of the Sicils at the time, the Sicils, an indigenous group of Sicilians, the first people here, their king, King Hyblon, said, you can come over near us and have your settlement here. And that is how they got the name Megara Iblea, as an homage to King Hyblon, who was hospitable to them, gave them some land to have their own spot. It took them about 100 years to have a sub-colony, and Selinunte, or Salinos, is their sub-colony. It's in an interesting position because it's the farthest west, and it's in technically Carthaginian territory. You also had some Sicani and Alimi near here, who are other indigenous groups in Sicily. The Greeks weren't exactly welcome, but it's thought that they squeezed their way in by establishing trade with the Carthaginians. You may know them as the Phoenicians, but they started their trading and then slowly moved out there, established their colony, but it did take about 100 years for them to start the sub-colonization process. But once they got out here, they were able to keep a good relationship with the Carthaginians for a while, but the Alimi were never really that interested in being friends. We'll see how that pans out in a few years. So the modern discovery of the temple behind me, who's most likely dedicated to Hera, didn't occur until about 1823. And from there, it took until about 1957 to decide if they wanted to put together all the pieces again, because it was in ruins. They decided to go ahead with the project. It was a bit controversial. So not only did they use the rocks that they found here, the ruins, but they also added some that look the same but are made of reinforced concrete so that they could put this temple back together again, hence why it was so controversial. Some people thought that they should stay with only what was here, only what they found when they excavated, but the choice was made to go ahead with this project in 1957. It took about 5 years for them to reconstruct what is here now and is dedicated to Hera. So the remnants of Temple F behind me that are in a Doric style and possibly dedicated to Athena. The ruins behind me now are the remnants of a temple that was probably dedicated to Apollo and are in the Ionian style. So how did all these rocks get here in these formations? The simple answer is they were excavated. They were dug out of the ground. But there was a specific way in which they did it. Obviously, you know, about 3,000 years ago, we didn't have all this modern technology to help us move things as easily as we do now. So there was literally a person on top of a rock formation, these caves that they found this specific kind of rock in. Someone would stay on top with a compass-like device to guide the excavation, and someone would move around the outside of the rock in a circle, chiseling and chiseling and chiseling. You can tell by this piece right here, this is sort of a good explanation of how it happened. They would just keep chiseling around in a circle, around in a circle. When they were done, they would flip it onto some slides or use a team of oxen because they are cylinders, so they will roll. This is just one of those places that's so incredible. You really can't get a good sense of it unless you come here and see it yourself. Selinunte was named after one of the rivers that runs close by here called Selinos, but was also named after this plant here, the wild celery or the Selinon. This part of the tour is the Acropolis. Now this is the main living space where you would find houses, people living. There are also temples in this section, but the main temples are in the western side of the park. People were living here, the sub-colony of Selinunte. The people were living here until about 409 when Hamilcar and the Carthaginians come in and leveled the city. 1,000 people were killed, it's estimated, and the rest were turned into slaves, shipped to different places. Now, after that, we have about, that was 409, about 339 BC, there's finally a brief peace between the Greeks and the Carthaginians, but it's not until 250 BC that the Punic people, the Carthaginians, come, move in and sort of start to make this place their own. The streets get a little narrower, but they do use what was left and turn that into their own living space. Though it was set up by the Selinuntans, the Greek subcolony of Mazara del Vallo, various other groups have lived here and used this foundation, including the Punic people, the Carthaginians, and also the Byzantines.